Geek Myths, a novel about life, love, and the pursuit of sonic screwdrivers. Available in paperback and Kindle edition from Amazon.
Scanning for audio.
Welcome to the last of 3 rather special Big Finish Day excerpts just for you to enjoy from the panels. This one's the Big Finish actors. It's Jan Chappell, Lisa Bauman, Tim Trelaw, Daisy Ashford and Sean Carlson. Hosted Gary Finney-Czar. And I may have pronounced that last one wrong, so I do apologise. Either way, here you go and enjoy.
Yeah, I think it's harder for me personally than doing TV or theatre, because you have to try and speak to an audience just via your voice and not your body. So it's quite a difficult challenge actually to talk to people via a microphone, because there's no one to look at. Usually there's not really much rehearsal. So yeah, I don't know. Quite a hard one. Hard question to start with.
Yeah, you certainly have to be more expressive with your voice because they can't see you. But if you look in the booths of the actors around you, you'll often find them sort of acting anyway with their bodies, because you can't really help it. I like it because you also don't have to learn the lines. You've got the script in front of you, and sometimes that gives you more freedom to be able to do it differently, to experiment a bit.
I find the audio work a very relaxing experience. Yeah, for that reason. I mean, of course, you prep the scripts, you work on the script, and you turn it with hopefully a finished performance. But television is so technical, and they can be. I don't want to whinge. They can be long days, and it's perhaps a bit more tiring, I suppose. And it's a very relaxed, pleasant experience being in the studio, having a fab lunch. Yes, the lunches are.
There's a lot of talk about lunches, actually.
I love doing the audios. I love the Big Finish work. It is a very relaxed, pleasant gig. It's wonderful.
Jen, how would you
Yes,
say?
I agree with that. I find it easy. I don't have to go home and learn the lines. That's a real bonus. The only thing is, as you say, one wants to get physical, one has to get physical.
I
was listening to myself, Barry.
That's very clear.
I'm not trying to make a grand entrance. Misdirected. Hello. Carry on.
Yeah, you were just saying about the big.
Oh yes, the only thing is, as you said, we do have to move. You're running, so and then it's avoiding making too much noise and bashing microphones or anything. That's what can be frustrating. You have to be restrained at the same time you're running, jumping off a boulder with your voice, and you can imagine that's not as easy as it sounds.
Sorry.
But I was going to say, but the days are great, and our producers are, well, in my experience anyway, the ones I've met, are very relaxed, and they're very particular at the same time. So they're disciplining us when we need to be, or guiding us, or saying do it again. But it never feels, I never get nervous. Nothing makes you nervous, and I love the days like you do.
Coming back to what you said about the physical side of it, Louise Jameson is a master of that, and I noticed very early on that if you were running down a corridor or getting attacked or fighting or whatever, she goes for it in that booth, and I watched that early on. I better do the same.
So do you feel that energised your performance at the same time?
She energises everyone. She's fantastic.
The problem is, though, that you have to do that, but then you get the sound engineers going, don't bang your feet. So you're actually not allowed to pick your feet up and do that because it makes too much noise.
What I always get is Scott Hancock at first take and go, Sean, have you got keys and coins in your pocket? Yes, sorry.
Although the classic one, there is a classic story of that splendid actor Michael Cochrane, who turned up, they kind of going, there's something wrong with this recording, can't work out. Turned out he had extremely noisy trousers on. He said, oh, that's all right, old chap, I'll just drop them. So he did. Luckily, we were all in separate booths, so it didn't scare them.
I was going to say, Lisa, what is it like for you as kind of being directing? Is there a difference between the approach to perhaps directing television to audio? What's kind of your main function, would you say?
My main function is to be you. Is to be the listener. The bottom line with anything, whether you're directing television or film or whatever, not that I have, but is the script and the story. That is the absolute bottom line. You're there to tell the story in as exciting and also to honour the writer, because assuming it's gone through all the editing processes and all that sort of stuff. And from my point of view, both on the production day and in post-production, is that as a layman, I'm not here as an expert of science fiction. I'm here as hopefully somebody who will make good drama. I actually don't think the genre in itself, I would say it is important, but at the same time, it's got to be dramatically accurate and working, and you've got to know when to buy yourself some silences and when to buy. So on the day, you're looking at the script, and it might say there's a huge thunderstorm in the background, so make sure everybody's pitching up. There's the little technical things like that. But if you've got a good enough cast, frankly, there are moments where you don't have to do anything, and you just listen and you go, yeah, that'll work. And then it's a case, because we're very lucky with all the editors we have, with making sure that they understand what the nature of the piece is. You don't want too many effects sometimes, you don't want too much music sometimes. It's mixing and matching, and when you hear it, it's a bit like seeing a picture. You know when it works, and it's the same. And making sure that the sound effects doesn't come over a really important line. There's always a word you go, oh, what was that word? And you go, no, they need to shift it a bit. So it's a bit like doing that.
Right.
But at the same time, enjoying hearing the cast and the performances. I love casting. I think it's the most exciting thing. It's like putting a kind of the best group of people together. And it's lovely when it works.
Yeah. I was going to ask you as well about different roles that you played now, particularly Tim and Daisy. You've done. You're currently quite well known for doing the Third Doctor audios, and obviously Daisy, you're doing a role that your mum did as Liz Shaw. I just wonder how did you approach those roles with the fact that they'd been done or so well known with somebody else doing it? Was that a challenge?
A lot of fear. terror, to be more honest. But I find it terrifying. Well, when I got the call to ask if I would do it, I said, yeah, great, yeah, fantastic. As soon as I got in the studio, honestly, it was brown trousers time. It was terrible. But luckily, for the first audio, they combined the Doctor's part with the narrator, which sort of helped ease a transition in. But for me, it was just complete preparation by watching a lot of the Pertwee era DVDs and stuff like that.
I seem to remember in the studio you had a little.
I record it and have it on my phone. So because it requires quite a bit of energy just to keep yourself thinking John Pertwee, not just the voice, but the sort of vocal mannerisms and things like that. And you're right. I did say I didn't do much physical acting with audio, but actually I realised I do. Because doing a lot of sort of like the back of the neck feeling, and lots of that, and lots of. And actually, Katie does that to me. Sometimes she looks at me across the studio and goes, "Now," like that. She'll prompt me if my voice is starting to lose the Pertweeisms, then she'll give me the physical cues sometimes. But yeah, it's a lot of preparation to do it, but it's ultimately a lot of fun. It really is.
And how was it for you, Daisy?
Yeah, I think I had a bit of a head start because obviously being my mum's daughter, we genetically got quite similar voices. But like you, I watched the stories beforehand to try and get, because obviously my mum wasn't quite as clipped as that in real life. She was quite clipped, but yeah. So having to go back to that sort of style and the energy of Liz, which is quite sort of driven and very intelligent and it's a big leap for me.
Yeah,
but also it felt like a huge responsibility because I know that she was such a beloved character, and the responsibility to try and do it justice and not to ruin that memory of her character for everybody who's listening. So yeah, it was quite daunting, but also a massive honour, because I think for me it's lovely, it's very special to be able to play a character, to step into my mum's shoes. Yeah, really moving. So I was really thrilled to be asked.
And it is fantastic. I don't know if you've heard it yet.
Yeah.
It's really uncanny.
Yeah, I think the thing that really struck me, I don't know what you'd say, was hearing, I think it was John Culshaw as the Brigadier as well, just hearing that trailer.
Yeah.
And I thought it was Nick Courtney. It was really uncanny.
It's fantastic.
It was absolutely brilliant.
I was listening again on the way up, and those scenes between you and John.
Yeah.
You shut your eyes and you can just see those characters.
He does well at it, as he could make a living out of that, couldn't he?
I was going to say now to you, Jan, as well. You obviously you played the character of Callie in Blake 7 on television. Was it an easy decision to come back and do it on audio for you? Would you say?
It's funny, now you ask me, obviously it was a big gap, but in my head somewhere, I've just seen from doing the series all those years ago to doing the audios, I can't see the sort of gap when I think about it now. So, what I found interesting, I remember the first days in the studio, was I'd remained friends with Sally, Jenna, and with a gap, Jacqueline. But the boys I hadn't kept in touch with in the same way, who just bumped into each other. But what was funny was when we were all in the studio, I thought, I remember all this. This feels like the music. I know we've all changed, got older, but the group dynamics and there was Michael still telling the stories, there was Paul still quipping this, Sally sort of dropping a script or something, me being quiet and boring, but it was just like the old days. It felt so familiar. You just thought, this just feels like it always did. Yeah, it was lovely.
Yes. So it was more or less almost like putting on an old pair of shoes, isn't it?
It was exactly.
Was that it?
Exactly. My feet have changed, so it didn't but it was. I mean, it was lovely, really lovely. And you thought, this is going to be fun, and it was. It felt the same.
Brilliant. Now, Sean, you're quite well known as playing the character of Narvin. I might say it was head of the CIA,
Celestial Intervention Agency.
Yeah. Now you've gone through quite a few different changes and swapped timelines a bit. How's that been for you?
It's confusing. Yeah. I think the nicest thing about Narvin, I was chatting with somebody about this earlier, is this lovely gradual character development. So for the first 3 series, I think you could have thought that Narvin was the bad guy, this kind of slimy, snarky, snide character that isn't particularly likeable, but people do seem to like him because he's just gone through this very gradual development, and the writing has just been,
Were you kind of aware that it might be an ongoing thing?
No, I wasn't. I really wasn't. The funny thing is, I remember when I got the first script, Gary had said, I want you to do this spin-off called Gallifrey, and I think they couldn't post it through the letterbox, so I had to go to the post office and collect it. And it's this envelope like this, and I thought, this is a long one. I didn't realise it was a whole series he'd asked me to do, so that was quite a buzz. And it was just fantastic. I didn't know how long it would last. I would never have imagined that we'd be here. Somebody tweeted recently that, it's 15 years since you first played Martin. Wow. Here we are celebrating 20 years of Big Finish. Fantastic.
21.
So what's your approach when you kind of get the script? Because, do you tend to read it so you're kind of very familiar with it when you go in? Because obviously I'm assuming you're not necessarily learning it the same way that you would if you were doing it with television or anything like that. Do you read it quite intensely before going?
Normally, anything I get, normally go, how many lines I got? The rest is just red noise.
Everybody's approach is different.
Say again?
Everybody's approach is different.
Yeah. I try and familiarise myself with the lines as much as I can, because especially with the way they speak, especially with the Third Doctor and at the period that it's set. That early 70s sort of like it's so much more poetic and dramatic and heightened than doing a sort of like a gritty northern drama on telly. So I think a lot of it is, especially with John Pertwee, he'd say his breath control was amazing. He could say like 20 lines in one breath. So a lot of it is trying to do that and trying to get a flow, you know, in the language, I think. But yeah, it does depend on the part, I think.
Yeah. And Lisa, obviously yourself, you've played Bernice Summerfield. How has that been for you, playing it over that period of time?
Well, it's like Sean said, that the amazing thing about it is that she has had a proper character development. She hasn't just stayed the same for 21 years. I mean, well, obviously longer, because there's been the adaptations of the books as well. And I think it's a sort of honour to the creation that Paul Cornell had written, in that she is a character that everybody seems to hook onto and understand. And I've been very lucky with the producers I've worked with over the years, and they've all not reinvented her, they've just given her a proper progression. But also we've had jumping on points, obviously, with the new adventures recently and the alternate Doctor ones, and it's very clever how they kept her going without feeling she's stuck in a rut.
Do you feel that they're writing it for you now?
Well, apparently they do. I don't know. The only thing, and I've said it time and again, and I'm sure you've heard me bang on about this, I don't really like to have too much say. I like to be surprised about what's coming. But the one thing that I've always stipulated is that I don't like it when she jokes too much, because I think she becomes slightly one-dimensional. But that's not how she uses humour, and the temptation with a lot of writers, she's just wisecracking the entire time, and it kind of undermines the character. But luckily people understand that now, so I just get what's given to me and go, yeah, I'll do.
Now, Sean, you've also done, I believe, or you're about to do, I don't know how much you can talk about it, you've done a series with Derek Jackson?
Yes, Del.
Which is due to that, I think it's coming out later in the year, is that right?
Yeah, fantastic honour.
How was it like working with Derek?
It's just fantastic. I had the pleasure of meeting him the first time, quite a few years ago. His first ever Doctor Who convention was down in Swansea, and Carrie Ivor Woodward, who organises that convention, said, "Look, would you interview Sir Derek, because it's a big deal. It's the first time he's ever done a Doctor Who convention." I don't do that. What you're doing now, I don't normally interview people. I was terrified, but I thought, I can't say no to that.
Yeah.
And it was lovely. We just sat and chatted. I didn't even mention Doctor Who. It was only at the end of the interview I realised I hadn't even touched on his episode.
Yeah.
We just talked about his stage career and
which
his
is
TV
fast,
career.
really.
Oh, it's incredible. The things that he's done, I'm just in awe of the man. And then so what have we done? We've done 2 series of Four Master, haven't we? That's right. So the first one we did, we didn't actually work together.
Right.
He was busy, I was busy, and we did that separately. So now, with the second series, we've actually got together again after all these years. He remembered Swansea as well, which was lovely. We chatted about that, and we were back in the studio together, and it was lovely to work with him, actually, to be in the same room.
Yeah.
What a terrific guy. We had a week in London, and he brought his dog in, and his partner, and he was just the loveliest person you could wish to work with. Adorable man. And when he sat there in the booth, we're all in our separate booths, and there's a glass partition between us, and I'm in booth 1, he's in booth 2. I always stand up. I don't know why. I like to be standing when I'm doing it, but some people sit down. He was sat down in the next booth, and I'm just watching him, listening. It's just deliciously evil, and so charming as well, utterly brilliant. He's just fantastic. Quite an honour.
Absolutely. How would you say, with yourself, Tim and Daisy, what are their plans for any more Third Doctor audios? Can you?
I believe there will be some. There's nothing set in stone yet, but there will be. I'm led to understand. I mean, best person to speak to is Nick. But yeah, I think there will be more being written at the moment. Not anymore.
Jan, I was just going to ask you as well about obviously very sadly, not long ago, we lost Paul. I'm just wondering, what was it like kind of working with him on the series, and what sort of memories do you have of him, really? If that's okay to ask you.
It's actually a bit difficult.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry, because we went to the funeral yesterday afternoon. Sorry, I didn't think I was. I felt I welled up just seeing Jacqueline's signature this morning. I suddenly sort of saw it and then thought, oh, she's got it. So yeah, and probably a bit tired, so a bit. But it was a private funeral. There were a lot of people. We were thinking, who are these people? I mean, he didn't have many family. There was a cousin there, and a nephew who was the son of Janet, his wife, so not a direct relative. But these were lots of really lovely people. Started talking to them, and they were people that were become Paul's friends in Wolverhampton since during the 2 years he's been up there. So he had quite a social life, but it was always a delight. But of course, the last year or 2 years we hadn't actually worked in the studio because it wasn't possible for him to get down to Tunbridge Wells or London without a lot of pain. So John Ainsworth was going up and recording his part of an episode, so we were doing it separately, which of course is, as an actor, is not what you really want to do. You want to be listening to that voice and reacting to it. And I think you can hear when it's not quite like that, but then maybe that's, I hope other people can't hear it, but I think as actors sometimes we can go, hang about, that person's not really talking to that person acting in the studio. But no, he will be deeply, deeply missed, as I'm sure all fans of Blake Seven will understand. And tomorrow we have this memorial convention, a small little one down in Didcot in memory of Jacqueline, and then there will be one later on for Paul, I'm sure. So yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine. I was going to say, what is your experience of kind of growing? Did you grow up watching Doctor Who? What's your kind of memories of it, I suppose?
I was a massive Tom Baker fan. And K9, I used to adore K9. And so I used to hide behind the sofa when I heard the song, the opening credits, like a lot of people did back in the day at 5:15, whatever. Was it 5:15 on a Saturday after full-time schools? And Saturday evenings was fantastic. So yeah, John Pert was too early for me. Tom Baker was my Doctor, and he was the one actually who is instrumental in getting me playing the third Doctor in audio. So it's doubly special for me. So, yeah.
What about for yourself, Daisy? What was that?
So who was my Doctor? Sylvester McCoy was my Doctor. But my earliest memories is it. Now you guys will know this. There's an episode where my mum sort of disintegrates. That's the wrong word, isn't it? She vanishes. The Five Doctors. That's the one.
I knew someone would know it.
So I have memories of. I think I must have been ill, home from school or something. I remember it coming on, and I was in the living room, and my mum was cooking dinner in the kitchen next door, and I remember seeing her disappearing and just getting really upset. She was just next door.
I can't imagine a childhood without Doctor Who. My earliest memory, I'm maybe a little older than you, Tim, but my earliest memory...
26.
My earliest memories of Sea Devils. Tell them my age, but then it was when Tom came along that I really adored the series. I enjoyed it. I watched it with John Pertwee, but perhaps I was too young to fully appreciate it. I just enjoyed the monsters.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it visually. Then when Tom became the Doctor, I absolutely fell in love with the series, and he is my Doctor. I watched every episode right throughout the 70s, and then we connected with it in the 90s because as a young actor as I was then, I've just left drama school, around about sort of 94 I started watching all the VHSs because I realised my local video shop was well stocked with, all the available Doctor Who's on VHS, and I started watching them, and not just the Tom stuff, but I started watching ones that I'd never seen, so stuff from the 80s, and then started buying Doctor Who magazine.
So you got the book, really?
I was a serious fan of the 90s, I really was, yeah.
Well, you jumped the bush.
Well, how many years ago was it the first episode of
63. 1963.
So I was never a sci-fi fan. But I do remember seeing Patrick Troughton on the screen and watching some odd episodes. I do remember that because I'm that old. And then I think I started going to a youth club on a Saturday evening, and I'd be busy getting ready to go outside. I wasn't watching well at the time.
By yourself, Lisa, any?
Well, I am that old, but
Right.
with older brothers, and
And of course, you were in the original, the series. The
last one
Yeah.
before it finished. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I do actually remember William Hartnell. I actually remember the visuals of William Hartnell. I remember very clearly Patrick Troughton, but my doctor of an age was John. And I even say it, and it's a bit of a classic quote, but the ones that stayed with me was the demons, because I remember that so well, and the Green Death, and those maggots. I'm sorry, mate. But the one thing that stayed with me, and I think in a way it sort of lost that weirdness, because there's a little bit of, when it comes to the incidental music of things like Doctor Who, in the 70s, that radiophonic workshop stuff was extraordinary. It was so weird and so out of the norm, and it wasn't kind of bombastic. It wasn't, this is a dramatic moment, or this is a romantic moment, or this is a comedy moment. This was just weird. Everything was a bit weird, and I think that matched Doctor Who really well. So although I wouldn't say I was a fan, I was very much aware of it. My brother actually, this is a little known fact, my brother was in the towns of Wen Chiang. He was working at the Theatre Royal in Northampton when they were filming it, weirdly with Chris Benjamin, obviously, who I've worked with since. And I remember him getting me Tom Baker's autograph, so I do have Tom's for free. Signed to me personally. So, I was aware of them and I watched them. Obviously, I'd gone to drama school and was working during all the Peter Davison era. I didn't know much about it then. And I worked with Mark Strickson at Salisbury in the theatre, and was suddenly aware of this fandom that I wasn't aware even existed. Right. Obviously, I latterly went on to do, in the lean years, should we say, I did Survival, which is obviously when it was pretty much dead in the water and scheduled opposite Coronation Street. Yeah, right. But there again, I wasn't aware of you guys at all in that context. So you're always aware of Doctor Who. You're aware of, but the enormity in people's lives. It's not until you become involved in this sort of thing that you realise it even exists, and the fact that it's still there. Yeah. And I used to go very early days to the kind of American conventions, and there'd be 2.5 people, certainly by the time I was in Doctor Who. And then going back to what Gallifrey has turned into with 3,500 people.
It's phenomenal.
It's a show like no other. And in nostalgic terms, we've got a lot to be grateful for.
I'd like to try and just throw out answer any questions to the audience. Anyone got a question they'd like to ask? Yes.
Hi. I've got a question for Lisa. So the Benny Olios are often a little bit more racy than most of what Big Finish does. And it goes to some weird places. Recently, one of the audiobooks that have recently been recorded, you have to read a passage where someone gets orally impregnated by a lizard.
Yeah. So pretty par for the course, really, isn't it?
How do you deal with passages like those and scenes where you have to even act it out as Benny? Like, how do you
say the lines and don't bump into the microphone. It's fun. You have to just engage in the storytelling. I mean, you can't kind of go, what? But it's weird because obviously all those books came out in between us recording them before we did the audiobooks. And I didn't know I was pregnant until I turned up on the first day. half dog. Okay, and this happened rather like you were saying, so yeah, there's some pretty weird things. It's as an actor, we're always asked to do, it's not just that, it's like advert auditions, you kind of get asked to do weird things. So it's all part of the rich tapestry of our career. But you just do it. I can't say I did a lot of research on that one.
Where would you start?
Where would I start? London Zoo. Moving swiftly. Thanks.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah. Favourite line?
Favourite
Line.
lines.
You guys.
Any favourite lines?
If we can remember any.
Good grief. Not going to do the voice.
Oh.
Probably have to prep it. You have to prep it for ages.
I have to say, I'm sorry, I can't really remember off the top of my head.
So it's not learning, having not to learn the lines.
Because it doesn't go in the same way.
I do like anything that's got lots of S's in it, because you can do the list.
Narvin must have some catchphrases.
Yeah, I was going to say, have you got any favourites?
I do recall a typo. Gary had hurriedly rewritten something and handed it to me. And I saw the typo straight away. I thought, well, I shall do it exactly as it's written on the page. Yeah. And so we went for a take, and I think the line was, "Romana, she gone." Gary went, "Sean, you sounded like you were doing something from a Song of the South there. A very strange interpretation of that." I said, "I did it exactly as it was written on the page. I think you'll find, Gary." All right.
Anyone else on any takes on that at all?
Well, there was a thing that Paul Cornell wrote in Death and the Daleks about a Dalek couldn't, something about a tomato. What was it? Somebody's got to remember this. Couldn't. That's the one. Dalek couldn't exterminate its way out of a tomato. And of course, the infamous "Oh Goddess." You got rid of that. You can't swear with too many syllables. It doesn't work.
Can I ask a question? Has it been on Mastermind or anything? Has anyone done
Yes.
Doctor Who?
Yes.
They have
They don't
done.
I don't know whether they've done Big Finish. That's what I
Smash it every year.
Yeah.
Many times they've done it. They've limited. They've said that you have to say a particular era of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's about time they did Big Finish, don't you?
Absolutely. Can I do that next time I go on?
Yes, please. Because you've done it twice now.
No, I've done it the once.
You've done it once. Once as a...
Many years ago.
Oh.
And Karen actually won
But that was the Doctor Who Mastermind, wasn't it?
There was a specific Doctor Who
There was
Mastermind.
Gavin, help me. Gavin, somebody or won it in the early 90s doing Doctor Who. Gavin.
Didn't Paul Simpson do one?
Yes.
Paul does.
Yes, that sounds right.
Yeah.
But the Gavin, I can't remember his second name, it was to do with glass. He was Mastermind champion in the early 90s.
That's very
And he did Doctor Who in the first round.
I've got it used to
But he's quicker
Yeah,
than I
I'd
was
say,
on.
yeah, 'cause the knowledge is unbelievable.
It is.
You should do a category of your favourite, your chosen subject being those who have been on Mastermind doing Doctor Who.
Well, no, this Gavin chat was on around about the same time as I was, early 90s.
Okay.
But I did England against Australia test matches between the wars.
Well, you see, that's far more sensible.
I'm on the current Brain of Britain on Radio 4. You can listen to me on 2 and 1.
Can I ask
Yes.
what your favourite line is?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
Whoever asked the question. After.
I could probably, off the top of my head, I know my favourite from Sean to now is my favourite for his is something along the lines of always expect the worst because then at least you're not surprised, and if it does go right, you go. If it does go wrong, you have to play it up and be right.
Very good. That's a good line.
Yes, there's a gentleman just there as well.
So, with the world as mad as it is at the moment, I just want to thank you all for bringing so much joy, happiness and escapism to your listeners. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
What I would like to know is, what would any of you enjoy listening to escape?
So what would you like to listen to escape?
I'm more music, I think, actually. I love my oldies, but
what sort of music would you listen to?
I'm very I like Bach, that kind of jazz. That's my thing. So.
Yeah, I'm music too. Music. Yeah.
Any particular sort of genre of music?
Yeah, Northern Soul or the Jam, the Who, things like that, mod stuff.
Yeah, music for me as well. Probably either classical or I love acoustic stuff. Joni Mitchell.
Oh yes, I'm with you on that. Thank you. Yeah, good girl.
Jan.
Yes, I enjoy music, but I also love listening to some of the afternoon plays.
Oh yes.
Not always. I listen for 5-10 minutes. No, I don't. Or I get caught up and I'm pleased. I'm just sorry. There used to be. Feels like in the old days they used to have longer plays on the radio.
Well, my
and
first
they're
radio
quite
was
short
a
now.
Saturday night theatre, which was an hour and a half.
Yes, that's right. Hour and a half I used to enjoy. Yeah, and the classic ones as well.
Yes,
I enjoy
okay.
listening to.
Yeah, I'll go with jazz. I'll go with jazz and acoustic stuff. My daughter got me into Nick Drake a few years ago.
I've got all of Nick Drake's, and I know Gabrielle Drake's brother.
If you're not into Nick Drake, do yourself.
You got to, and he wasn't discovered in his own lifetime at all, and
Yeah.
that's the really sad thing. And now everybody's suddenly realised what a great songwriter he was.
Genius.
Lyrics are amazing. Yeah, sorry. Fan out.
Do any of you play instruments at all? Things you quite like music? Do any of you dabble anything or write
I play
anything?
guitar and I
You,
sing.
you played,
Yeah.
you sang live professionally.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've seen you in
jazz
pubs
band.
loads of times. Well, not loads of times, but
Is that something you'd like to do more?
Yeah, so I used to write my own songs and sing, do gigs in the pub.
I've seen you, yeah.
And then the guy, I had an amazing guitarist who could play anything, and I'd write songs and go, can you do it, but a bit more like this? And he'd go, what, like this? And I'd play it, and it was exactly like it was in my head. But then sadly he moved to the other side of England, and I stopped gigging really, but I'm now trying to get better on the guitar so I can do it all by myself.
Oh.
I played bass guitar with a punk band back in the mid-90s.
Wow.
For a couple of years.
Is it any band we might know of?
I doubt it. We supported Feeder once, that wasn't bad. And I remember we used to rehearse under there was a studio built into a railway arch in Cardiff, just off Bute Street. And Catatonia used to be leaving the studio as we would arrive.
Wow.
We all fancied charismatic.
My mate played bass for Catatonia and he left just before they signed their contract.
Oh, classic.
Who's that? Good days.
Are the yourselves?
Yes, I used to do gigs a long time ago. I played the piano and wrote songs and sang, but I used to do them in Bristol when we were doing waitressing. There was this thing, and I wrote musicals for about 5 minutes. But I haven't had my physical keyboard or piano for about 20 years, and I just sort of fallen off. But I used to sing. There was back in the 50s. There was a rather well-known composer called Julian Slade who wrote Salad Days and things like that. And I did it as my final year show at drama school, and he took me under his wing, and I used to go and do concerts around the country with him, just singing, but piano was the thing. And I taught myself flute as well for about 5 minutes. But haven't done it. It's one of the, you pick things up and you leave them. But I can show off slightly because my nephew's quite well known on the pop rock thing. He's the musical director and drummer for Dua Lipa. Who's like the biggest download star ever, and was with LaRue with another girl beforehand. So he does the musical thing. But I haven't done it for a long time. But I kind of miss it actually. Did you ever do it?
Yeah.
No, I play simple classic sight reading on a piano.
Yes.
But for me,
Isn't it terrifying performing? I used to do music festivals, and I used to get my hands used to shake like I couldn't.
I think it's the same as driving, because I can drive come the revolution. I've taken 3 tests, but nerves get the better of me.
Yeah.
And in fact, the last driving instructor said I should go and get those pills that the snooker players have.
Right.
And then I'd pass the test. I mean, I've done the Hendon Way. I've done down to Golders Green in the rush hour. But I've done the emergency stop with my driving instructor beside me. But come a test, forget it. And I remember I said, when I was at primary school, I was about 10, I said, yes, I can play something in the concert. And I thought, well, I will, I do know this one, but I completely messed it up, and I was, I can never play.
But
Something
no-
to do with
yeah.
that connection. I'm thinking, well, how can you act on stage when nerves can completely get the better of you in those scenarios, but somehow you channel it in some
But
way?
it's that use. I had to audition once for something. I was my only audition at the National, and they wanted somebody who could play the flute. I taught myself. I had never played in public. I'd never played. And you think when you play the piano, or you know your hand shake. I thought, wonder what shakes when you play the flute, and you realise it's your bottom of the neck. It wasn't good. It wasn't a nice experience. The nerves thing is absolutely. It's a bit like auditions though as well, because singing auditions. Give me a song I've known all my life. No, let's put it this way, right? Give me a song I have to learn in 5 minutes with an audience of a couple of thousand, and I can go on and do it like that. Give me a song I've known all my life, 3 people sitting at the end of the room, and I can't breathe. I can't do it. It's terrifying. I hate it. Yeah, I don't know. It's bizarre.
Have we got any more questions too? Yes, sir.
So more for Tim and Daisy. So you guys do an amazing job bringing back to life these beloved characters. But to what extent do you feel like you have the opportunity to find new interpretations of the characters? Because of course they find themselves in situations that wouldn't have found themselves in the 70s.
I don't know if I'm ready to start going sort of off-piste in it. Yeah, but certainly the way the writing's developed and changed is adding more, and the relationship between me and Katie in the studio has changed, and I think the character between the Doctor, the relationship between the Doctor and Joe is becoming warmer and becoming more sort of reliant on each other, interreliant. And yeah, I think I don't know. It's up to the writers, really. I guess each time going to the studio, it's still the same as the first time. You know, it's still quite nerve-wracking because there's a lot to live up to. So.
Yeah, I mean, obviously early days for me. I've only done the one story. I think, I was kind of eased into it by the fact that it was a bit of a twist on Liz. So she was sort of playing her evil self. So that was nice in a way because it gave me the freedom to kind of warm into her without having to be exactly Liz. But like you say, the writing dictates that a lot. And John Dorney was incredible at writing something that was so true to the original, I think, but also developed the characters into a different place. So yeah, with writing like that, you go with it and trust your instincts, I suppose.
I suppose now that you've got these extra 2 characters, now you've got Liz and you've got the Brigadier in at that stage, then that will change the relationships. Obviously, because you've got Liz and Joe in the same stories, and
A little bit torn.
Bit torn. I'll take both of you. Sorry.
I think Liz and Joe will go off.
Even better. Sorry. I'm trying to behave so far.
Did I see somebody else with their hand up over there? Yes.
Are there more plans for after the Gallifrey Time War is concluded? Are there more plans for more Gallifrey? And also, do you intend either to record all the many books that you finished with? Because at the minute there's a massive gap between Death and the Daleks. I think it's Life during wartime.
That's right. Yeah.
And either one again. Being blind, I've not been able to read novels.
No, of course not.
So it's a bit kind of like, what's going on?
Tell me about it.
Any kind of context to sort of
Are there any
understand what's going on? You're going to have to do something wrong with it. So.
Yeah.
Oh.
Time War chat.
Yes, definitely more Gallifrey. Can't give you any spoilers, but yeah, you've got a lot to look forward to. It's lovely the fact that Gallifrey is ongoing as Gallifrey Time War, and then of course Narvin is off having adventures with the War Master as well. So plenty more Narvin to look forward to, and certainly a lot more Gallifrey as well. I can't think of anything more than that.
When it comes to I'm not sure what I'm allowed to say. Not allowed to say. Watch this space, you won't be disappointed, is what I'm going to say. And I've already recorded 5, so there may be some more coming along. So it seems like a sensible thing to do, because now I know what's going on, because I know.
I'm glad you're enjoying it.
I think we just have one more question.
Yes, I'd like to ask Jan, when you came to the new Blake Sevens with Big Finish, did you find elements in Callie that weren't there anymore, and maybe that you wish had been explored more during the TV era of the show?
Well, I feel that since we've been doing the audios, that increasingly Callie has a little bit more power to her elbow, and I'm delighted about that. So it does feel like she's been able to develop in all sorts of different directions. So it has been, I've forgotten about that when we were talking about the difference, but of course it has been satisfying. Have you noticed that?
Oh,
Have
yes.
You felt aware of that?
Some great stories.
Yes, I think so too.
And Sally as well as Jenna.
Yes.
The two of you had much more to do in the audios, I think, than you ever had in the TV.
I know, and of course we were in such a different era. Things were so different. I remember Sally and I did an interview we thought was for a Belgium newspaper, where we said we were, I think the second series, we were a bit frustrated. We were like left on the Liberator a bit to make tea, and basically Sally and I wanted to go filming and have a few days out of the studio, because of course those days we would be doing it on videotape in the studio, and every so often, each other episode they'd send two actors of the regular characters and maybe a guest who'd go off for 3 days to the hotel and be out in the Box Hill or somewhere, which was lovely. But no, I'm joking. But we were frustrated about not having enough action. Well, unfortunately, it was the news of the world after it came out, and the most awful picture of Sally and I looking so grumpy, and I don't know where they found it, saying, what was it? What do they call it when there's a conflict in a group? What do they call it? What's the word?
Tension.
No. When there's a rebellion.
Oh, rebellion.
What's the word? On the Liberator, but it wasn't
Revolution.
Mutiny.
Mutiny.
Mutiny on the Liberator, and it was us like. And the producer came in on Monday morning, really sort of thunderstruck, and we had to say, well, we didn't really say it like that. And of course, anyway, we thought we were just doing it with some little bloke who came from Brussels, and it was all going to be quite. We just didn't know what we were doing, but that did reflect our frustration. But things have changed now. The whole ship would have been run by Jenna and Callie now, wouldn't it? The guys have been fighting for decent parts.
You probably won. Okay, on Saturday we've come to the end, so I'd like to thank Lisa, Jan, Sean, Daisy and Tim. Round of applause, please.
On Saturday the 31st of August 2019, Hooverville returns. The Derby Quad brings us the best little Doctor Who convention in the world. Guests announced so far include Ingrid Oliver, Osgood, Sophia Miles, Madame Pompadour, the girl in the fireplace, Nabil Shaban, who played Syl, Christopher Ryan, Lord Kiv in Mind Warp, and General Stahl in the Sontaran Stratagem. Edward Russell, former Doctor Who brand manager. Rob Ritchie, 3D animator on the Macra Terror. Keith Barnfather from Real Time Pictures. Chris Chapman, Doctor Who VAM producer. James Burgess, model maker on Mission to the Own remake. And there are sponsored guests including Michael E. Bride, director, and Simon Fisher Becker, who played Dorian Maldivar. There are still guests to be announced, and some of them are pretty impressive. So get yourself over to the Derby Quad website and book yourself a ticket for Saturday the 31st of August 2019. See you there. That was the Doctor Who Tin Dog Podcast, available on iTunes, YouTube, Twitter, RSS, Vimeo and across the internet. Doctor Who and its associated properties are all copyright and trademark of the BBC. No infringement is intended. Why not become a supporter by visiting patreon.com/tindog. Contact the show on tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk. The Tin Dog Podcast is a founder member of the Doctor Who Podcast Alliance.